Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Nicholas Lionrider, and welcome back to the Roger Williams Park Zoo, Episode 2. I'm here today with Lemur, and since the last time I did a little bit of building, but off camera. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on a lot of things right now. Today we're going to be working on the Watusi, Wildebeest, and Zebra exhibit over here. And if we have time, I want to try and start the bathroom. So before anything, let's get started. So I'm starting the time lapse right now, so I'm just basically outlining the path. Now, Lemur has never actually been to the Roger Williams Park Zoo.
This is true, because I do not live in Rhode Island.
No. However, he is a pretty active Planet Zoo user, so he thought he could lend some other expertise to the conversation.
Yes.
So what I'm doing here is I'm basically going into Google Maps, and I'm immediately just kind of using their Street View to like get reference for like where I am in the zoo and every little detail I can get. So since you don't know much about the zoo, but basically the entrance to the zoo immediately after, the entrance to the zebra exhibit has these kind of like rock formations that lead down like a few different like little paths. So I'm basically just using the like big square rocks to like kind of fill in that kind of niche if I can. On the other side I added some rocks because I messed up where I was oriented for some reason, so I actually go back and delete those afterward. So going through here, I'm just going and adding more of those rocks, and like I said, going back and forth between Street View and the actual game just so that I can get that kind of like angle right. Because the zebra exhibit has like kind of this unnecessary wavy path for some reason. I don't know why it's...
seeing that right now on Street View. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's weird because it's just unnecessarily wavy because it's otherwise straight. So I added the little curves regardless, but I was just trying to make sure everything's all set. So behind these rocks, I didn't really talk about it, but off camera last episode, I actually did like some of the faculty buildings behind the front entrance. So for Planet Zoo wise, I use that as the keeper hut where the staff can like go in and do whatever. And I think I put the Animal Trade Center, so I think that's where the animals get dropped off. So right now what I'm doing is I'm using some of the Planet Zoo brace round cylinders to like kind of act as the wood pillars for this kind of entranceway. Now I'm trying to like figure out like what the distance is, and in this episode I kind of go back and forth between what the best kind of log I should use for a lot of the buildings are, because 90% of the zoo's architecture is wood-based. So
Yes.
Planet Zoo has a lot of options, and yet none of them are like exact for what you need. So as you can see, I'm going here. I made the exit since the last time, and I'm using the kind of like, I don't know what I think it's the East Asian wood, but I wasn't really liking it. It wasn't the kind of like thin wood plank that I needed. So I found the classic wood trim and just recolored it so that it could work better. And then I just kind of connect all of those up until I get the entrance. Angles are another weird thing, where normally if this was my own, you know, whatever zoo, I would just make everything grid-based. But since I'm trying to go for like the realistic organic element, I'm like going through the hassle of trying to use the gizmo not correctly.
Yeah, I feel like the zoo that you're making, it has like a lot of really basic parts to it that are like in Planet Zoo, but a lot of the parts are like weirdly mixed in with others.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you were just making your own sandbox zoo and you weren't basing it off the real thing, a lot of the things that you need to do in this like recreation you would never actually do if you were just designing a zoo.
No, exactly. So this is a great example. So I see that there's like logs on top of the building, right? Or like the little overhang. And so I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Planet Zoo actually has logs that I can use, but they're just a little too long. Just a little bit. They're pretty close, but just a little bit too long. But
Yeah,
I'm like,
I really wish it had like a scale feature.
yeah, yeah, a scale feature would be awesome. So here's a little technique I actually learned. So I want some log variety. So what I do is I take this half log and I'm basically just copying it around like the other side so that I get like a full length log that looks different than the rest. And what I'm doing is I'm making groups. So basically, if you can take 3 to 4 repeated pieces of wood. So for instance, I have like these kind of logs and I rotated them and turned them so that they all look different, even though they're not. They're all the same log pretty much. But since they're all like looking different, I can then turn this into a group and then just copy it over, and it looks like I, did totally unique pieces of wood, even though I copied everything.
Yeah.
So over here, there's a little wooden bridge underneath, or like wooden pathway before the stone path, or the asphalt, or whatever you want to call it, between a lot of these sections. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to use again, because I knew I wanted to use a custom wood thing, because I knew the normal wooden pieces weren't going to work. So I once again used those East Asian planks, which I found to probably be one of the best wooden options in the game, I guess, if you want to go for like these kind of custom plank elements. And like I said, I'm just basically copying a thing, moving it a little bit, making a group, copying it, and you can just duplicate entire things that way really quickly. And so even if it's a little long, I can go in and delete anything I don't need, and boom, I have a whole pathway. So I actually lifted one of the planks up in the pattern so that it wasn't totally symmetrical the whole time. And then I'm going back in at the end and just retouching it up so that you can't see the pattern, and like moving some of the pieces back down and that sort of thing.
Yeah. One of the best things to do when you're trying to make your zoo look realistic in the way that it's like not perfect is like one thing that Planet Zoo is really good at is that you can just kind of push things into each other, which like you're doing with the rocks right now, where it kind of gives that more like authentic feel where it just looks like one big rock and not a bunch of random like tiny rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Planet Zoo doesn't really have an option for like floors or walls or that kind of thing. At least not as much as you'd want.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what I'm doing right here is this is like a big forest mound basically, and from the reference image I saw, there's a little like photo op area that I knew there was bamboo. You can see the bamboo in the Google Street View image, and so I knew there's bamboo, and I'm like, oh, I can just use the bamboo that I used or that's actually in the game. I definitely regret using that initially, and I think I get rid of it because it's just too much and it's like way too big. And so I think I go back at some point and I like delete it or something and replace it with some of the smaller bamboo that I have on the right.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think I delete it and I use that smaller bamboo just to fill in those little gaps, just because it wasn't looking as good as I'd want. And the other thing I'm really surprised by, and I'm not really happy with Planet Zoo, there's a lot of great foliage options, like a lot of really nice trees and stuff. They're all like really, really short, though, trunk-wise. So there's not a lot of like really long trees, except for these birch trees. So I end up using these like thin birch trees a lot. Because the oak trees in the game are like really, really wide, like, but very short, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So they're like,
and a lot of the. Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, and so like, there's just not a lot of like tall trees that can fill up a lot of space without it being like sunk in the ground or like really thin and like. So what I'm actually doing for a lot of these things is I'm just using full trees as bushes. I'm just sinking full trees into the ground. And so I'm also using those mulch pieces that I used in the front entrance again. I'm not a huge fan of them, but you know, they do the job just fine.
One thing that's interesting about this zebra exhibit is how when you like on the path is like really weird because there's so much like foliage in between the path and the actual exhibit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it even in real life, that's the interesting thing because, like I said, I go every season pretty much, at least like once a season, give or take. And so the foliage will really depend on what season you're going in. So right now it's winter, so there's like no foliage in this entire path. So the Google Street View image that you see of it, like, oh my god, it's so lush and there's trees everywhere. They're all dead trees in real life. Like all the trees, the leaves fell and that sort of thing, and like it's just not like anything like it is in Planet Zoo right now. So what I'm also doing is, I don't know if you can see it in the reference images and stuff, but the actual zebra exhibit is kind of a pit. So you're about maybe, I don't know, like 2 or 3 feet higher than the actual zebras are. And so there's a chain link fence and a little wooden fence so that you're not like running up right next to it or anything. But just to be safe, like they also have like a little pit that like separate. Oh, right there you can see me messing with the path tool. But there's a little pit that like basically they just like keep to lower the little terrain. So I wanted to just add that in if I can.
Yeah, I'm curious if you were, because I know you're doing sandbox mode, so you don't have to worry about guest happiness. But I'm curious if it would say that you have like a bad view of like the zebras.
Oh, it definitely would. I was laughing at that because had I not been using Sandbox and like turned off everything, this zoo would be the most miserable place by Planet Zoo metrics. Oh, here's a technique that I actually wanted to comment on. So in Planet Zoo, you can't actually use curved paths for chain link fence and wooden fence and a few other different types, but you can curve paths for glass. So what I'm doing is, even though I want to do a chain link fence for this entire area, I'm actually going in with the glass first, and then I select all the glass and change it manually to chain link, and then it keeps the curve. So like right here, I switch it over, or actually I'm raising it because I'm trying to figure out what length it should be. And then there you go, and then now it's all curved chain link fence. So
wow, I didn't actually know that it did that.
Yeah, it's weird because it's just like, just let all of the, if you're able to do this in this kind of work,
developer oversight at that point.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird workaround.
Yeah.
But so I'm basically just going around and I'm just raising the fence wherever I can, because I was just trying to remember, based on my own memory of the zoo, like where you're able to kind of see the chain link fence and where it's very short so that you're like kind of looking down without an obstructed view. So I knew in the little overhang gazebo area that is the main viewing area, the fence is very, very low. There's like a wooden fence and some foliage and stuff, but the actual view isn't really obstructed at all. So right now I'm actually doing that wooden fence. I'm trying to figure out what kind of wood pieces I want to use. So I'm using I forgot what these logs are called. I think it's just like a wooden log or something. And I'm making a custom fence just to kind of match what the fences they have. Now I'm thinking I'm slick here. I'm trying to be smart. I'm like, I'm going to only do one half of the fence so that when I copy it over, it just is automatically duplicated. That would have been the smart thing to do, but then I'm like, no, I want it to be twice as long. And so I totally just ditched that, and now I'm trying to like line up all the fences. So what you're seeing is actually 8 times faster than normal, right? So you can actually tell how painfully slow this process actually was.
Right.
Because yeah, I'm just lining them up just as close as I possibly can. I think right here I see there's like a little like divot or like crook in the fence or something, so I try to like add that in.
Yeah, it stinks when you have to use like when you make, because sometimes Planet Zoo doesn't have the type of fence you need, so you have to make like custom fences.
Yeah.
And you can't do it like a normal like path type system, so you just have to painfully duplicate everything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such a painful mess. Like it looks good. It definitely looks good, but like
yeah.
There's just, it is surprising. Like, there's not actually a lot of fence types in the game.
There are not.
There's like, maybe like, how many? Like, literally like less than 10, right? Like, it's nothing.
I think so.
So, like I said, I'm just slowly but surely just getting to the other end of the first zebra viewing area. And luckily, I was smart and I copied over that kind of wooden path to the other side. And then at this point, I mess around with the pathing system again because I want to get it like closer to.
It just looks like a rug.
Yeah, yeah. So what I do is I think I like copy it over or something, and just move it so that it fits.
Why does it look like a puzzle piece? Like, is that because you see how there's like the one plate?
Yep.
Like...
Yeah. So what I did was it just so that it wasn't like totally repeating the pattern. Even though it's a very subtle pattern, like it was like becoming too obvious until I didn't move it over. So I moved over like like I guess in that case just one of the wooden pieces, just over a little bit so that like it wasn't nearly as obvious. Now here's where the wooden inconsistency starts. So I'm using those what are those, like the Planet Zoo pillars again?
Yeah.
To fill in like some of like the weird like detailing on the exit to the exhibit. But it's not going to line up with the same type of wood as the fence. So, again, little inconsistency there, but like, you know, it just worked out better.
I'm disappointed in you, Nick.
I mean, it worked better for like the actual game, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and it's so like, one of the things that in Planet Zoo is it's harder to be like, actual zoos have like human inconsistencies, I guess is the only way that I can describe it. Where they're like to be like more stylized, nothing's really like perfect looking.
Yep.
But in Planet Zoo, since it's all fake objects, they're all like too perfect looking.
Yeah, exactly. So like even like stuff like the wood and stuff like just isn't like if you look at the reference images, the wood is all that kind of like light greenish gray just because it's like like it's just been like sitting around in the elements for like years. Yeah. It just like deteriorating slowly. It's still fine to like look at, but like it's clearly not, you know, brand spanking new wood or anything. And that's why I didn't like using the basic, like I think it's the New World theme wood like floor or something. It just wasn't like something that looked
clean.
Exactly. Okay, here's a weird detail. So you're probably wondering what I'm doing right now. Bricks. Yeah, there's if you look at the Google Maps image, there's a couple of just like little bricks that you have like almost like in a garden or something laying around.
How detailed you're being, because I am looking at the street view and I saw those bricks. I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna put those in. And yeah, he is putting in the bricks.
Yeah. I don't even remember. I forget. The last time I went was a few days ago, I think, and yeah, I think I went last Monday. And I should check the next time I go, like if they're actually there or not, because like I was just basing it off of street view, like I said. I take my own personal reference images when I like go on my own, but like obviously I'm not that meticulous where I'm just like, oh, I need to take 50 photos or whatever of every bush in the thing. So I'm using Street View as kind of that big reference that I can be like, oh well, I'm being pretty accurate.
I like the thought of you ruining every like zoo family trip because you're stopping everywhere to take reference photos for Planet Zoo.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that one time. I was like, what if like just for some reason, right, I just brought a laptop into the zoo and I was just sitting on every like you see these benches I'm putting in, if I'm just on a bench just playing Planet Zoo, just like looking around and just trying to add everything manually.
That's a really fun video idea. Too bad it would, I don't know, would security be like, what the heck are you
I don't
doing?
know. It's like a weird thing where like I don't know if that would be like an issue or not. I don't think it actually would. Like I can't imagine like a lap.
You're not hurting anyone else. You're just kind of chilling.
Well, I'm thinking like there's a lot. It's a pretty common thing in for instance, Aaron Blaze. He's a ex-Disney animator. He did a video where he went to the San Diego Zoo and literally like he drew animals. So he brought in like a giant sketch pad and like an easel and stuff and was just going to the gorilla exhibit. Time to just, draw a gorilla. And so, I don't know. Like if I brought a laptop. Now, I personally don't really like using laptops. I'm a desktop guy myself. So I don't know if I could deal with that. Maybe with a mouse and a good laptop, it would be possible. I think it'd be a good like fun episode to do if I like. if I just was sitting there the whole time.
Do you think if you go to the zoo and like show the higher ups at the zoo your amazing recreation, do you think you get like a little reward?
Behind the well, so that was actually a thing, and I think I'm gonna show this off in the next episode. But the behind the scenes faculty facilities are interesting, because as much as I can use reference from Google images of the paths, and I've been to the zoos 100 times, and like, so I know what the guest perspective of the zoo is supposed to look like, but behind the scenes, I don't know what there is. I don't know where the sheds are. I don't know so for the zebras, for instance, I know that they had to put the zebras in the exhibit somehow, and I know they have to feed them. I don't know where the gates are per se. I just know, like, later in the, I think the next episode, I'll be going over this with the stables. I know that they exist, and I know that they have a transport system, and they have like little golf carts and and stuff like that, where they're just moving around to like get animals to and from the vet and whatever. But I'm not sure where those facilities are. So for that,
for like a behind the scenes.
Yeah, so that would be an interesting thing, where if I could just like see like some of the yards, and I'll sometimes see them, because I've been to the zoo enough where I know where some of the facilities are. So for instance, over by the cheetah exhibit, there's one kind of gate area, and that leads directly to what I believe is the zebra stables and the cheetahs, and like that's just the main area. And like it's just a big long strip that I think someone was like mowing the lawn or something, so they had a tractor going through it, and they just let the tractor open. I think actually on Google Maps, if you went through the zoo, they have like one of the gates open or something, and you can see like one of the like maintenance tractors or something.
I know on Street View you can see a lot of the golf carts riding around.
Yeah, exactly, because it's just like a common zoo thing. Like they just need like staff moving around left and right.
Yes.
So right now I'm just going in, and how I'm actually getting the trees to be accurate. I'm on the satellite view now of the zoo, and I'm just looking at where trees are located. And then I go back and forth between the street view of like what the guest sees and what the satellite view sees to see like where the trees should be placed. And I have to do some correction later, because when I add the stables in, like it wasn't totally accurate, so I had to like go back. And there's one stable that I think the Watusi use is pretty accurate, but the zebras on the other hand are not. I'm not sure about the main stable area, if that's correct. Also right here, I'm just going back in and I'm just changing some of the fences, fence heights, because I think by the second yeah, what am I doing? I'm looking at like where the actual chain link fence, and like it wasn't actually like lining up or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to like go back and fix those. There's like a lot of height tweaks and stuff I had to do the entire time. That's been a pain, but that's just, you know, going back and forth and just changing some stuff up.
And you are making like the full exhibits when you get there, right?
Yes. So basically I'm just, well, what do you mean by the full exhibit?
Like completing the exhibit 100% before moving on to the next one.
Yes. So like I said, this area is probably going to be a two-parter. So the zebra, wildebeest, Watusi exhibit, as well as like the surrounding entrance area and stuff. It's a really long task, and so I'm probably gonna have to split the video a little bit. But I did finish everything, pretty much everything, at least in the zebra exhibit. The bathrooms are all set, and then I did a little bit more of the path work after that. But I'm making sure that I'm gonna try and go chronological. So the episodes are gonna be basically if you followed the zoo. Now, Roger Williams is gonna be one of the best examples of a chronological zoo, because I actually wanted to make a video on this, on zoo ranking slash like quality, if that makes sense. Like, and what I grade zoos on, and one of the big things is like placement in a circuit, because there's nothing worse than backtracking in any place you go to. It doesn't matter if it's an amusement park, a zoo, whatever. There is nothing worse than needing to be like, all right, well, I did everything over here. Oh, I missed all of this. Okay, and then you have to walk a half a mile or whatever to get to the stuff you want. Yeah, it's like trick-or-treating in a cul-de-sac. And then you're like, oh, well, now I have to go all the way back through the neighborhood. I'm at a dead end. Now I have to go all the way back. And so when a zoo does that, and a lot of big zoos do that. The Bronx Zoo is one of my favorite zoos I've ever been to, but it's a great example of horrible layout.
Yeah, well, because normally zoos, like, they just start and then they get a bit too big, and it's like, well, you can't just redesign the whole zoo.
Exactly.
Keep just wherever they have space, they have to keep expanding.
Which is why I'm surprised Roger Williams has actually been, because it, like I said in the last episode, it's the third oldest zoo in the nation. So I'm surprised that it's maintained that kind of circular design. It's very beat by beat. You start out, you look at the zebras, you go to the cheetahs, you go to the oudads, you go to the elephants, you go to the giraffes.
What are you making right now?
So this is the beginning of the bathroom. So, I don't know if you're looking at the street image.
I'm actually like right by the bathroom right now.
Yeah, it's right next to the exit to the zoo, which is that kind of like wooden building I added.
Yes.
And I'm fighting right now with the Planet Zoo system and the path system, just trying to get this bathroom in place. I know I should be able to place a restroom here, which, by the way, is another thing. They don't call them bathrooms or restrooms in Planet Zoo. They call them toilets. I don't know why. So I'm like,
does it make a difference?
Well, it makes a difference because I was just looking up like, oh, I want a restroom in this search bar, and it's like, I don't know what a restroom is. I only know what a toilet block is.
That makes more sense.
And so like that was the only reason I was confused. Like I don't really care like what they call it otherwise, but it was just annoying like when I'm trying to like build this like entire thing.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Do you put in the Pepsi vending machines?
I do.
Oh my god, you do?
I sure do.
Because right now, yeah, because the bathroom's also connected to like a stroller area. They have like a little garage.
Yep. Yeah. So that's actually on the left side. Yeah, the left side of the building.
Yeah.
I do eventually add those. I think that might be in the next episode where I do that, but I do get around to it.
Yeah, because then there are 4 Pepsi machines right next to that.
Yep. So
and
I
for
think.
some reason on Google Street View it blurs out the name Pepsi on all of them.
But I do put them in. I actually made specifically for this series a soda machine.
Oh.
So I had to build one.
Why doesn't Planet Zoo just have a soda machine?
There's a lot of essential stuff that Planet Zoo doesn't have.
Yeah.
And it was really surprising to me, like as I was playing it. I'm like, they don't have strollers. There's no stroller object. There's no.
They have go-karts or not go-karts?
Nope.
Golf carts.
Nope. They don't have golf carts.
Oh.
They don't have.
Use those.
Okay, so even on the side, I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, let's actually go over this a little bit, because this is a little bit of a jump from what the rest of the series has been. So I'm actually in Blender right now because the Roger Williams Park Zoo has 2 animals in this exhibit that aren't actually in the game. They have the Watusi, or the Ankoli cattle, which are what these animals are. And they're basically cows with really big horns. They're like wild cattle that live in Africa. And so what I'm doing... Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm just modding the Cape Buffalo, or the African Buffalo, whatever they call it. And I'm just trying to like convert it. So I'm probably gonna have another video planned soon that just goes over Planet Zoo modding. But I just wanted a little like, insight to my process in doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'm making a lot of mistakes in this because this is one of the first big mods I ever actually did for Planet Zoo. Mm-hmm. A lot of the other ones I did were like retextures and stuff. But this is the first one that like
just you expanding out the things.
Yeah.
Because it looks like you're trying to make it look dumb, but it's actually just what they look like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's ridiculous looking,
yeah.
But that's actually what it is. And so I don't actually know. There's a lot of like little things with Planet Zoo modding and like the Blender file that like are a pain. So for instance, I can't really merge vertices. Like you see these seams where the horns are. I can't actually merge those points to be one area. or else like it just creates a hole in the model when it actually goes back in the game. Now this is another weird situation where at the time I didn't know how to actually select all the faces or polygons in this area. And so this is just pretty much footage of me being bad at Blender, and I'm like trying to figure out the best way to like make these horns look like horns and not like a giant cylinder.
Yeah.
The best I
Now,
can.
as far as I'm aware, you cannot use ZBrush for Planet Zoo mods?
No. So you really can't use anything other than Blender.
Okay.
So the modding tools currently, they were created by a few of the Planet Zoo users. There are actually X-Zoo Tycoon 2 modders that actually like came together to make this tool. I believe it's Hendrix, Jesse, and a few others. They made this tool, and it's extremely useful. I'm super grateful. But there's like a lot of weird things that I'm not a big fan of. For instance, it's only accessible in Blender for now. So I'm a big Maya user. I come from a background in Maya or 3ds Max. And so I know how to use those programs perfectly. I'm not the best at Blender. So for this series, I basically had to like almost learn Blender just so that I could like get some of these like animals to look right. I eventually get around right here to getting the horn in a reasonable position. Like I said, I was also trying to figure out what kind of position I wanted the horns in. If I wanted them to be upward facing, downward facing. And I think the ones at the zoo have kind of like these like just slightly arced down horns. Unfortunately, in this episode, I don't have the texturing process of the Watusi. I just have the modeling pretty much. So what I'm doing is, again, being bad at Blender and then copying it around. But I eventually get around to just mirroring the one side that I did.
Right. Do you, so wait, is this one specifically finished in the next episode, or?
Yes. So this is all finished in the next episode, which is pretty much towards the end of this episode.
So you guys are just getting teased right now.
Yeah, exactly. But since I don't have the rest of the habitat done in this episode, I wanted to just quickly, I'm gonna probably have some cinematics of the Watusi running around, just towards the end of this episode. So like I said, I'm just, once again, just being really bad at selecting vertices and stuff. What I didn't realize is you have to there's a little icon at the bottom, and that does it.
Oh.
And, so right now that little exoskeleton is the fur shader of the Watusi, and so I think that's about it. So now you can just see the cinematics of the actual animal, and we'll just pick it up in the next episode. So stay tuned, and next episode we finish the zebra exhibit. Thanks for watching.
Bye.